Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today's webinar. And I know you all are joining in from all across. So it's wonderful to have all of you here today with us. Very quickly to introduce myself, my name is Neha Shetty. I'm the Regional Director for South Asia within Uni Global, and I'm really excited to be hosting this session today. This session is not a boring PPT slideshow that we've always seen during webinars, but this is to understand a student's perspective. And honestly, if I were a student exploring my options, this is exactly the kind of webinars or conversations I would love to be a part of. So, getting a real sense of what it truly means to be a Hartpury student, which is just beyond what is written on our brochures, is something what is going to happen here today. And I know starting university in a new country is exciting, but it also comes with a lot of questions. And questions such as, will I fit in? What will my day to day life look like? What opportunities will you actually get after completion of the course? And these are totally valid questions. So today is going to be about getting things into perspective from the students themselves. So you will hear directly from their experiences, be it academically, be it socially or professionally. And I'm sure the students here are going to be sharing their honest perspective about what life at Hartpury really is. I got a couple of minutes before all of you all joined in to have a quick chat with two of our panelists today, and I'm sure they're very happy to answer any of the questions that you all are going to be putting forward. So, before I explain the house rules, I'm going to quickly introduce our the panelists today. We have Ohan Patel, who is doing currently his BSc honors at Equine Business Management, and he's currently in his first year. Welcome, Ohan. We're really delighted to have you here. To start off with today's session, could you please briefly introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey so far? Because this will help the audience get to know you a bit better before we deep dive into the questions. Ohan, over to you.
Hi guys, my name's Ohan. I've been riding for about 10 years now and working with horses. I actually found Hartpury on Instagram 10 years ago. That's how I found the university a long time ago actually. And I chose to come here. I chose to study equine over here, and I've fallen in love with the university ever since.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So, guys, any questions for Ohan? I'm going to begin with a couple of questions, but feel free to use the chat box for the same. Welcome once again, Ohan. We also have Sophie McKenna, who is currently studying BSc Sport Therapy, and she's also in her first year. Over to you, Sophie.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie. I had the same experience as Ohan. I found out about Hartpury on Instagram about 10 years ago. I originally wanted to go to a university with equine studies to take a horse, but then I morphed into not wanting to be directly in the equine industry, so I moved over to sport. I had some experiences in high school with sport, and that really solidified wanting to have a practical experience, and Hartpury was that for me.
Amazing. Thank you, Sophie. We are looking forward to listening to your experience further. We also have with us Lydia Robinson. She's the head of international recruitment at Hartpury. Welcome, Lydia.
Thank you. Morning, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have anything to share, please feel free to jump in at any point in time. But thank you for joining us today. Perfect. So before we begin, a little bit of boring stuff, just a quick housekeeping notes for all of y'all. This session is being recorded and we'll be sharing the recording with you afterwards. But while we are having these live Q&A, please feel free to use the chat box. I can see somebody who has raised their hand. I would request you if you could use the chat box because we're not allowed to engage with conversations by putting the mic on, right? So you can submit your questions and then we will try to cover as many answers as possible. And we also have our September intake coming up very soon. So applications are open, right? And then now we are encouraging all of y'all to start engaging with our student panel. But before we see the questions in the chat box, I'll be starting, with a couple of questions for both of you. Feel free to jump in when you feel that this is the right time for you to speak, right? So the first question is for both the students. Before arriving, what were your assumptions about studying abroad, and what turned out to be completely different once you landed up in UK or Hartpury?
I think for me, so I'm from the US, and I really thought there would be a massive culture shock. I thought I would have a huge time feeling like I fit in and I feel really homesick, but it really was a big lead up to not much of a end finale. So the first intake week we had at Hartpury was just for international students, and that really helped. I became friends with Ohan. That's where we first met, and just other international students. We got to talk about our experiences, recover from jet lag, move in at the same time, and that really helped. I actually had more of a culture shock going back home than being at Hartpury. So.
Amazing.
I definitely agree with Sophie. For me as well, there wasn't a large culture shock. It was more of the smaller things like the way your key turns and stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, but aside from that, yes, the first week we had over here definitely did help us settle in. And aside from that, the university is very inclusive. There are lots of facilities to help if you're feeling homesick, if you need someone to talk to. So I never really felt homesick or had a big culture shock and had a hard time fitting in. It was quite easy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. This is a very warm answer, and I'm sure this is what everybody would want to understand how you guys feel as soon as you all move to a different place altogether. So thank you for sharing that. Another question for both of y'all. What initially sparked your interest in applying to Hartpury, and how did you shortlist Hartpury amongst the other options that y'all had?
Well, I originally applied to about 17 schools back home,
Wow.
which is very uncommon, I would say. So I'm not normal, but I really didn't know where to go. I wanted all my options to be there. And it really ended up being looking at the final rubrics of each course. That's how I originally focused on like the campus look. And then I was like, well, everyone has trees, everyone has a library, that's not helping me. So it was deep diving into all 17 courses and really just going, well, I don't want to study all of these random things back home. I really want to focus and deep dive into the course I want to study and finish up with and be able to go into the business straight afterwards. And Hartpury gave me that. So that was the main option for me.
Very good. You seem to be very focused. So that is something that I could make out, but very good. Yes, Ohan, please.
I mean, I've been around horses since I've been a little kid. I've always loved horses. And I always knew from when I was a lot younger that I wanted to go into equine and that I wanted to study equine. For me, the next thing was figuring out what course I wanted to do. And I've always had a passion for business as well. So I thought, why not? I'll study equine business. And it combines both the aspects of two things that I really love. And then, obviously I found Hartpury while scrolling on Instagram,
Yeah.
and it looked really appealing. And I ended up applying to a total of 5 universities in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to go to the university that was best at equine and equine business as a course. And Hartpury turned out to be just that. So I decided to come here.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Guys, I don't see a lot of questions coming in from the students. Please feel free to use the chat box and ask more questions. Again, we have Ohan Patel, who is currently in his first year studying BSc Honors in Equine Business Management. And we have Sophie, who is doing BSc Sport Therapy. So, any questions around sports, equine, or Hartpury or UK overall, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Okay, so while we are waiting for the same, I know there are a few questions coming in, but before that, can you all share a moment where theory really clicked through a practical experience? What was that moment for you all in the first year that stood out when it came to the academics?
Yeah. I think for me, anatomy is my entire course. So you can talk about muscles and bones as much as you want, but you never really get to have the experience of feeling a ruptured tendon or anything like that until you have hands on experience. So for our practicals at Hartpury, for my course, we practice on each other. So I have a weekly partner that I get to manipulate their joints and everything. So I get to feel what I studied in the classroom every single week. And just it's a constant light bulb moment. There's not a single practical that I haven't gone, oh, that's so interesting.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Juan?
For me, it definitely had to be my first time doing a dissection,
Mm-hmm.
because working with horses, riding them, jumping them, it's a whole different story when you open up the body and you see what it actually looks like inside. You see this muscle moving, you see this tendon in action, and it explains a lot to you. And it feels like a moment where everything clicks in your brain of, oh, this is actually going on under their skin while we're riding them.
Amazing. Beautiful. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Students, if I may request you all to ask the questions to our current students from Hartpury, which are related to their experiences rather than academic requirements, because I'll cover up the academic requirements towards the end. And Lydia, if feel free to jump in with any of the questions that you feel you could answer for our audience today. But we have one question from Thomas, and I think this is something that every student wants to know. What does a typical week look like in both of your courses?
So it's 5 days a week, basically. But the student union here at Hartpury a couple years ago sent out a questionnaire asking students which days they want off and which days they want to be in the classroom. And students said that they wanted 3 days a week of intense study and then 2 days off. So at Hartpury, you have 2 break days during the week, including the weekend. So you're only in the classroom 3 days a week. So for me, I have a mix of practicals and lectures and seminars, roughly between, I'd say my minimum is 2 a day and then up to 5, which would be a really intense day. And then once a week, I go out to the sports academy teams and I perform first aid for the Hartpury teams that I've been allocated. I was, for the first week, given a first aid course with all the other students in my program. And that's part of our program now. That's our placement hours, is once a week we go out and help students that are part of Hartpury Academy with their first aid during teams.
Amazing. Cool. That's a lot of practical learning, right? And also good balance between the week. So that's exciting to hear. How about you, Han?
For me, on my course, I've got Mondays and Wednesdays off, which is really nice. Works really well. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I've got classes. I'm doing equine industry right now, introductions to the principles of marketing, equestrian project management as well. So I've got a good mix of business courses, equine business modules, and equine modules in there. And typically on Tuesdays, I finish pretty early in the afternoon. Wednesdays, I do have off, and Gloucester's really nice place to go visit on the Mondays and Wednesdays that I do have off. Get your chores done, get groceries done, etc. And Thursdays and Fridays, Thursdays I might finish a little bit later in the evening, Fridays as well, but they're amazing modules and I love studying them.
Very good. I mean, this is good to hear. Both of you all are excited about what you're learning. And this is where we know that Hartpury is a very good choice for most of the students out there, right? A couple of questions for you, Sophie, that I can see here. When was the first time you felt like you were applying real sport therapy skills in a practical setting? I know you've answered a bit of it, but specific to your sport therapy skills, if you can highlight that a bit more.
Yes. So just every week, I'm allocated a team at Hartpury. It could be football, netball, or rugby, men and women. And so that's part of the professional practice of skills module. So I go in and I professionally practice my skills. So I work with parents if they're underage students in signing forms. If someone gets injured, I'm the first person to run on with my partner, who's also a student, and we assess the student. We are emergency first aiders. And then based on what we can assess, we either call in the ambulance and we hand them off from there, or we go back to the medical room at Hartpury and we help them fill out forms to go to A&E, or prescribe them like a doctor's note. So we assess that ourselves. There is one of our lecturers there to help us, but that's every week. I've seen concussions, people being knocked out, broken limbs, dislocations, bloody noses, anything you can think of that you see on TV. You practice that your second week at Hartpury.
Wow, this is not just exciting, but this is giving you so many real-time experiences, and I think that that's fantastic to hear. And there was this one follow-up question, I think, which is what kind of facilities or environments do you train in? Of course, when there are cases of emergency, that's different, but when it comes to sports, how close are they to the real world setting? Just something that everybody would love to hear.
Yeah, so Hartpury runs its own clinic, sports therapy clinic. So we have our general gyms that are for students and everything that you can be a part of. And then we have the academy gyms. And then within that, those get rented out times for therapy treatment rooms, where people come in and pay. And then there are also the student-led clinics, which are free. Students and staff members can come in and get treated. That's real world experience that we're getting. That I'm going to be a part of that as a second and third year. I've gone in for an observational day, so I know a bit about what it looks like. But that'll be second and third year, that I'll be treating real life patients.
Wow, amazing. I wish you all the best for that. Great. Ohan, over to you. I can see a couple of questions around equine business management as well. So, how do you see the business side of the equine industry come to life in your courses?
That's another really interesting aspect as well. So I also had a placement requirement on my course.
Mm-hmm.
So as a part of that, I was working at the therapy center over here for the horses, and I got to see quite a few things in the admin side, the accounting side, and how things actually work, which was really interesting as a part of my course. Aside from that, we do have also quite a few business modules. So I studied a bit of economics going into this, a bit of accounting going into this. And because it's relative to the equine industry, it makes it a lot more interesting to study it. It's not just basic accounting, basic business, but it's also something that can be translated to normal business and accounting. So it works well because it's niche, it's specialized, but at the same time, it can be expanded.
Absolutely. Most of the questions while I'm speaking to the students, I receive a lot of questions around, if we are interested in business and equine both, what kind of career pathway, does the course open up? So if you could also highlight a little bit on
Most
that.
definitely does because if you're gonna run a yard one day, you need equine business. If you're gonna manage a yard one day, you need equine business. Even something that's more horse related, like producing horses, selling them, you're going to need to know a little bit of business at least, and equine business does a great job of explaining that. But aside from even owning a yard, there are loads of different fields you could go into. You could choose to go the breeding route, you could choose to go the event route. So your options are plentiful, especially with equine business.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We have over 100 attendees today. I would love to see more questions come up for the current students. We just don't want you to hear, but we want you to ask, because I always say this, that before you enter or choose a university, it's very important to hear the perspective of current students. So please feel free to ask more questions, again, for the experiences, not just the admission related questions. And Lydia has been very kind enough to give you all the answers in the chat box. So please also read through that. But again, Sophie, a little bit for you, because I think many students are here interested in sports. So, you know, where do tools like data, performance analysis, or AI come into your learning, and how relevant are they? Because everybody is interested to know about, the I would say, the upcoming, data courses, and that's what the interest is. So please, if you could highlight on that.
Yeah, so I don't have much experience yet, but for a lot of them haven't been directed with sports therapy, but my other modules, they try and bring in different ones to give it a broader experience. So exercise science is where you'll see a lot of them. I will have a bit of merging with it, but not extremely a lot. I actually figured out I really don't like exercise science. There's a lot of data, a lot of AI, a lot of testing that I just find very boring. So I do not like it. But it's a good skill that you need to learn, and a good, I guess, life lesson of you need to push through and learn good skills that include AI and data collection. And we use something called SPSS, and we do that many times a week. It's very tedious, but you end up with great graphs that you can study, and I really like that graphing part. But just there's a lot of data collection with AI, where you're looking at students that you learn with. They are your subjects. You get their data from running on a treadmill or their breath intake, and you analyze that. You can use different statistical markings or AI to help you with that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because I think with the emerging technologies coming up, AI is a very creative way of getting things done very fast. So it's good to see that all of these, skills are already embedded in your curriculum. So that's great. There's another question from Thomas. How much of your courses is practical versus classroom based? I think we answered this, but if you want to quickly again cover this up.
So for every lecture, I have a practical. So there's nothing that it's either going to be practical then lecture, or lecture then practical. There's never going to be in a practical setting that I've learned in a lecture or a seminar. So Hartpury does a really good job of intertwining the two and making sure you're in a lab room or a practical setting for that.
Thank you. I hope you've answered your question. Another one from Ramu is, are there opportunities to specialize within your courses? So,
There
yes.
definitely are opportunities to specialize within your courses as well. I know it sounds really niche to already be studying equine business itself, but definitely, if you want to specialize in, per se, event management, on my course at least, you get a good mix of all the different things you need to be an event manager, event coordinator, things like that. So you can specialize in going to the event side of things. You can specialize in going to the show side of things, just shows and competitions, helping over there, managing logistics over there, being a part of a team over there. You can do that. You can also, again, as I said, specialize in running a yard. So you can choose to specialize in only the business aspect with a little bit of horse knowledge and keep your head out of the other things. So you definitely can specialize in most of the courses over here further even.
Beautiful. How about you, Sophie? Do you want to add something?
I'd say you have to be very careful with looking at the accreditation of your course. Mine is accredited with the Society of Sports Therapists. So at the end of my year, basically all I'm studying is to get me to that accreditation, to get me practicing by the time I finish this 3-year course. So I don't really have an area to specialize within my course. I'm here to study sports therapy. I could go into looking at football athletes or rugby athletes, but that's all you're going to get. You need to find some other course if you want to go broader, or a master's program to help you specialize even more afterwards.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Another question for both of you, in fact. What's that one skill you've developed here that you didn't expect, but now you see it very essential for your career? What would that one skill be? Sophie?
That's a really hard question, but honestly, it's just patient communication, that you just communicating with other people. You have to be open and honest, and consent is a big one. You have to be comfortable your first week just poking and prodding at different people that you've never met in your entire life. And that's something, as a practitioner, as a person, you're going to meet strangers and have to communicate with them and be friends with them, even if you don't want to. So, just towards the business side as well, you're going to deal with people you don't like in life. And just Hartpury, there are courses to teach you how to handle that and how to advance as a person within that.
Amazing, Sophie. That was a good skill that you have spoken of, because this is something that we're still adapting to. So this is great. Thank you so much. What about you, Han? Would you like to share in?
Me, it would definitely be adaptive communication. Because studying equine business, you'll realize that in the setting of a dissection, in the setting of a business practical, in the setting of working at a yard and having to talk to a client, in all these different settings, you need to have a different tone. You need to be talking in a different manner, because you could be talking to a client, you could be talking to a coworker, and I definitely didn't expect to learn how to adapt my communication this well before I came over here, to know how to change tone, change inflection, etc., just depending on who I'm talking to, so I can get my point across in the best way.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. We have a couple of more questions. How different, I think this is for Sophie, how different is studying in the UK compared to your home country? Or both of you all can answer this.
I'd say back again to the culture shock. It's not as big as I thought. It's really what I hoped for, I would say. Back home, there's a lot of the goal of university is to create a well-rounded person, is what they say. So you're doing, if you're studying science, you're also doing history to become a well-rounded person, which is great. But when you really want to get done as quickly as possible, you don't really want to be stuck in a history classroom. So that was really different here, as in I was not expected to do 10 pages of history and reading and writing and mathematical equations. And if I was, it was directly towards my course and helping me complete my course.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Beautiful. Another question. Okay, sorry, Ohan, would you like to jump in? Like how about
Yeah, sure. I definitely agree with what Sophie said as well, because it definitely plays a big factor, and it definitely, yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with exactly what she said over there.
Okay, great. Then we have another question, which is, I think feedback, right? Like I do hear this a lot from students where they're not very open about taking feedbacks, but this is something which is quite different when you're going to be studying in the UK overall. So there's one question, which is, what kind of feedback do you receive on the practical work, or maybe on your day to day? I mean, I would just want the audience to hear more about the feedback which helps you improve.
So when I started over here in the first semester as well, for most of the modules that I had, we had formative assessments, which are assessments that aren't graded, that you don't actually have to submit. They won't be graded. They won't go on your record. So that really helped with just getting feedback on knowing how to study over here, technically, because again, it's completely different studying back home in India compared to coming over here. It's a different system, different things to learn. So definitely did help having formative assessments. It helped having tutor sessions every week where I would just get feedback. And the feedback is presented really well over here. I'm given the choice whether I want to take it, whether I don't want to, how I want to work with it. And the professors, the teachers, the lecturers, they know what they're doing. And that makes feedback really impactful.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Sophie, do you want to add in anything?
Yeah, so at least in my experience, the practical settings, the max amount of people you're going to have is between 15 and 20. So for like a 2-hour course. So the teachers, they're able to go around and individually assess you just during your everyday practical sessions. They can tell you, hey, move your hand up 3 inches to get a better grip on this muscle. And they'll guide your hand placements, or they'll say, hey, come over here and feel on this person. So you can ask them questions. They're always open. You don't have really any, I would say, as much as retirees, you all have someone who is directly in the area of your study currently practicing, so they can give you real life settings and answer your questions that aren't 20 years outdated.
Amazing. Thank you. And I think the support that you spoke of is also equally important in order to get the right feedback. So thank you for sharing that as well. Great. So we have, I think, a couple of questions for equine in particular, but I think you've answered them, Ohan. Just to quickly can take you through, how did you evaluate whether combining business with equine industry would give you a better career opportunity?
So I did actually have a lot of people telling me just study business management, don't specialize so early, don't go into something so niche. But for a long time now, I've known what I wanted to do, and I'm really passionate about what I want to do, which is why I made the choice to go out and study this. Uh, and also translates really well to normal business as well. It's not like I'm solely forcing myself to learn business only in the setting of equine, because it is applicable outside of that as well. And the equine industry is something that's also developing. If you look at trends in that industry, it's a growing industry, especially even in Asia now, where it's getting bigger and bigger each year, and there's a lot of business in there to be capitalized on, especially when it comes to breeding in some countries, when it comes to running a yard in other countries. Overall, the industry is blooming right now, and it would definitely help to have a lot of people doing business in this industry.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And I think you did speak about your experience with horses prior to joining Hartpury. So, how important was that for you to make a decision on just going for equine? So, I think it's the same thing that you already spoke of. But is it also necessary to have such an experience before choosing the course that you have chosen?
I mean, if you're going for equine business, there's no necessary riding requirements that come with the course, so you would not need to. Uh, for me, I've always had my life kind of centered around horses. It's been my main sport. It's been kind of what I've always done. So that definitely did help me experience-wise, knowing a lot about horses. But you definitely don't need to have a lot of riding experience if you're going to into a course like equine business.
Thank you for that. I think we have more students asking questions about the application process. So, was there anything in your application, such as be it the personal statement or your experiences, which has created a stronger impact for you to get admission? Or what is it that you highlighted in the process, which has made it easier for Hartpury to choose you as a student?
So how it works back home is we have a personal essay, which is really just about yourself, a personal experience about how you are as a person, why the university would want to include you, how you can benefit the university. I wrote my essay on chickens and how I helped my chickens at my high school. So that's very different to hear. The statement is about how you can benefit the course specifically. So you need to tailor it to your work experience, or just if you didn't get a specific work experience here, just how your life has made you a better person for the course specifically. They want to know how you can tailor the course at a personal level, and just really putting your life into a practical setting itself.
Very well answered. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to the next one. What would you say to students who are interested but still unsure about committing to a specific university like Hartpury? What would you say to the rest? Because I'm sure you must have gone through the same difficulty while choosing your university.
For me, so I applied to 5 universities in the UK, right? And after, when it came to deciding which university I'm going to go to, for me, it was mainly who's teaching what I want exactly, course wise, because I want the exact course, obviously, and who is known most for it. So, Hartpury, especially when it comes to equine and sport, is known to be a specialist university. It was Specialist University of the Year last year as well. Uh, so they definitely know what they're doing, especially when it comes to courses like equine and sport. And that definitely did impact my decision a lot, seeing the university on social media and stuff, and seeing a lot of people that I knew actually from back home that were also in equine going there made a huge difference to me. And that definitely led me to single out Hartpury from the other universities in that list.
Very cool. Very interesting to know that. What about you, Sophie?
Yeah, really the same. When I visited Hartpury, I was told by the lecturers that because this is a specialist university, there's not much room to, I would say, you can't minor in any courses, and then you can't change courses easily. So it's baseline of do what you love. If you can see yourself in 10 years just being happy in what you're doing, then you need to come to Hartpury because you'll be happy here. And then, of course, there's always in 5 years when you finish, there's diplomas at Hartpury, just little tiny degrees you can get, master's degrees. I want to keep studying a master's degree in equine industry to help niche my area. So there are still opportunities, but you really have to know what you love.
Perfect. Amazing. And again, a very, very important question to students. How do you manage your time between practical sessions and the assignments or the daily classes? Could you elaborate a bit on that?
For me, so in my first semester, it was split pretty evenly between equine practicals, so like dissections and stuff, and business classes. And now in the second semester, for me, it's split pretty evenly between business practicals and other modules and classes. But I actually don't have that hard of a time with time management over here. I think the way the assessment periods are scheduled is really nice. I think the way the semesters are scheduled works really well. And with having Mondays and Wednesdays off in a week, for example, it gives me a good amount of time to work on coursework outside of the course, just at home, just studying, just looking over things. And the lecturers do a really great job of outlining as well what is needed to be done in particular, rather than it being more vague, I'd say. So it definitely clicks really well. And I have not really had a hard time till now managing my time over here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This is feeling so refreshing to hear from you guys directly on your experiences. So, this is fantastic. I'm sure you're helping everybody be more inspired and making the right choice. Pinak, I can see you're raising your hand, but I would request you to type your question in the chat so we can take it to the students. Another question which was quite similar to what you answered, but did you tailor your application specifically for your course? And if yes, how? But I think it was all about the personal statement that you all tailored to your experiences and made it more personalized in order to make a difference, right? Or is there anything furthermore in the application that added value towards the course that you all chose?
I mean, all I can say is when I came to submitting my essay, documents and stuff, I made an effort to emphasize that I was knowledgeable in both the business and the equine aspect. I don't think it would have been of much help if I was just really good at equine or really good at business. So I did my best to show that I had an even balance of both.
Very good, very important. Perfect. And I think there was one for how many years of study gap is accepted. So there's no set rule for study gap. They'll be assessed case by case, but there should be a very good reason, and you should mention it in your CV or your personal statement on why the gaps are, right? But yes, but I think there are no more questions. But I have a final question for both of you. So looking back, what was that one honest piece of advice that you'd give to an international student who is considering to study at Hartpury?
again, just do what you love, and just relax. It's going to be okay. It feels very overwhelming, very overstimulating right now. And probably everyone's telling you, oh, it'll all work itself out, which is just, who wants to hear that? But that really is how it is. There's lots of people here to help you at Hartpury. You have your nurses, your mental health practitioners, and then just your friends that you'll make, and your lecturers, of course. Like, it's going to be okay as long as you're here and just making sure you look for those opportunities. It's very self aware of just, you see that post on Instagram of, hey, who needs help? You go and say, I'm there for you. And then it'll happen vice versa. Just make it your own. Just be safe and just have fun and relax.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Sophie. For you, I would like, Ohan, I would just change the question a bit. In one sentence, what would being a student of Hartpury mean to you?
Mm, for me, that means being a part of something bigger. And for me, that something bigger is the equine industry that is really meaningful to me. And it definitely is really valuable to me to be a part of this industry and make an active contribution to it.
Beautiful. Perfect. So thank you so much. I think we do not have any further questions, but your insights and your experiences that you have shared so far and so openly were really valuable, and this is going to make a lot of difference to the students who are listening right now. Thank you, Lydia, also for joining us today and helping the students with the admission criterias and putting a lot of information in the chat. But yes, I would like to end this session, and I would also like to thank everyone who joined us today. We hope that this session has given you a very clear understanding and a very authentic insight into what it is like to be a Hartpury student. But if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to your counselor or to connect with our team. We're very happy to support you, and we are looking forward to welcoming you to Hartpury in the future. We have a September intake, which is right around the corner. So please go ahead and submit your applications. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day ahead. And thank you for joining. We're going to see you soon.